Hi guys, Joe Biden participated in CNN town hall in Milwaukee. That was extremely boring and embarrassing, but I managed to find the best moments for you, so let's watch it together.
The president and I will not be wearing masks on this stage. He, of course, has been vaccinated. Over the past several weeks, I've repeatedly tested negative for coronavirus, as recently as yesterday and this morning as well. We will, however, be keeping our distance from one another.
Biden's administration is supposed to be the most scientific one. Why can't you just trust the vaccine? I think this is the message. When everyone will get vaccinated, you still have to keep a distance and wear the stupid mask. The first question was, when will be the time when every American can get vaccinated?
By the end of July of this year. When we came into office, there was only 50 million doses that are available.
Biden is claiming there were only 50 million doses and it's not enough. And somehow, as of today, there are only 25 million Americans got vaccinated. Maybe you still have some leftovers?
We've moved out, went to the Pfizer and Moderna and said, can you produce more vaccine and more rapidly? They not only agreed to go from 200 to 400, then they've agreed to go to 600 million.
Why do you need 600 million when you have 320 million of population and you know that 30% of population won't get vaccinated? Just to spend some more money? Biden tries to pretend that without his will, no one would produce the vaccine. And if you look at the current graph of vaccination in the United States, it actually improved over the last 2 weeks. But if you compare it with United Kingdom or with Israel, it's not as dynamic as it should be. The next question was about Biden's plan for students to come back to school.
One, first of all, making sure everybody is wearing protective gear. It's available to students as well as to teachers.
So the protective gear is basically a mask. And is it really hard to get a mask for all school kids and teachers? 2 weeks ago, I've been to Miami and my mask got broken and TSA just gave me another one for free.
Secondly, organizing in smaller pods, which means that's why we need more teachers. Instead of a classroom of 30 kids in it, you have 3 classes in that same of 10 kids each in those. I'm making the number up, less. It doesn't have to be literally 10.
Wait, if everyone wears a mask, why do you need to make a class smaller? What's the logic here? And where are you going to get money to hire 200% more of the teachers?
I think that we should be vaccinating teachers. We should move them up in the hierarchy as well.
This is actually the smartest thing he said, because if you vaccinate all teachers, you don't need any masks and you can reopen your school next day.
Our 19-year-old son was diagnosed with pediatric COPD. We're told he has the lungs of a 60-year-old. We've tried all we can to get him a vaccine. Do you have a plan to vaccinate those who are most vulnerable sooner?
The states make the decisions on who is in what order. I can make recommendations, but I can't tell the state you must move such and such a group of people up. But here's what I'd like to do. If you're willing, I'll stay around after this is over, and maybe we can talk a few minutes and see if I can get you some help.
Okay, this reminds me of Russian President Putin town halls. They always have a person from a village who's calling to Mr. Putin and says like, oh, I'm a mother of 4 children, I have a very shitty apartment to live, I need to improve my living standards. And then Putin says, okay, stay in line, I will talk to my governors and they will solve your problem. And then in 1 month, this lady actually gets a new apartment and the state television came and make a great interview with the new owner and glorifying President Putin to make this extraordinary achievement. I assume in 1 month CNN will make a special report about vaccination of that poor little kid, and at the same time 100,000 of other kids with the same COVID precondition won't get any vaccine. Now Biden decided to talk about new strains and how vaccine might not be efficient for them.
There are some speculation. I got to be very careful here because millions of people are watching this. It may be that a certain vaccination for a certain strain may reduce from 95% to a lower percentage of certainty that it will keep you from getting...
It may not be as effective against a variant, but it still would be effective.
Still be effective.
Anderson Cooper tries to prevent Biden to say some anti-vaccination stuff. But the most embarrassing here is that Biden has no idea how the vaccine trials work, and the efficacy rate cannot be measured precisely because it depends on the content of the studied group, and usually it has a very small size, so it could be 95% in one study, then it could be 97, and then it could be 93. But we all know it's more than 90. And again, from scientific perspective, the whole point of RNA-based vaccine is that if you have the same kind of protein which virus generates, the vaccine will work. That's 100%. And since all new virus strains doesn't change the virus protein, the vaccine will work. But Biden is not that smart enough to process this piece of science. Now the question about racial disparities in COVID vaccine distribution and why black people don't want to get it. And Biden has some interesting perspective.
Number one, there is some history of blacks being used as guinea pigs in other experiments, as need not tell you, doctor, over the last 50 to 75 to 100 years in America.
50 to 75 years? Am I missing some Nazi-style experiments on black people in the United States? What?
The other portion is a lot of people don't know how to register. Not everybody in the community, in the Hispanic and the African American community, know how to get online to determine how to get in line for that COVID vaccination.
Okay, so blacks and Latinos don't know how to use internet. This is very racist and obviously not true, but this is Biden.
My grandchildren can use that online, make me look like I'm in the 7th century.
Is he suggesting that he is black? Or maybe it has nothing to do with race, but rather with some mental capabilities?
As we've been talking about, the coronavirus is very real and very scary.
Coronavirus is very scary, and I don't know how to read from the paper, and I'm white privileged. What does it mean?
And it's especially scary for children who may or may not understand. Often ask if they will catch COVID, and if they do, will they die? When will kids be able to get the vaccine?
Kids don't get the vaccine, get COVID very often. It's unusual for that to happen.
Well, it's not true. Kids get it, but don't have any symptoms.
Number two, you're not likely to be able to be exposed to something and spread it to mommy or daddy. And it's not likely mommy and daddy are able to spread it to you either.
You were just talking about opening the schools and you want everyone to wear a mask and reduce the class to 10 people. Although I agree with what you're saying, it just doesn't align. Now it's time to talk about $15 minimum wage and indexing.
When we indexed it at 720, if we kept it indexed to inflation, people would be making $20 an hour right now.
$20 an hour? Really? Can I use my calculator? It's $8.75.
The Congressional Budget Office says that a $15 minimum wage would lift 900,000 people out of poverty, but would also cost 1.4 million people their jobs. Is that?
Yes, but there's also, if you read that whole thing about Pinocchios and all the rest, there are also equal number of studies say that wouldn't have that effect.
Well, maybe some gender studies scientists created some strange reports about minimum wage, which contradicts the whole economic theory and all the experience around the world. I don't know, but I have the whole video about this topic. Now it's time for white supremacy.
I got involved in politics to begin with because of civil rights and opposition to white supremacists, the Ku Klux Klan.
Man, really? Who the f cares about KKK in 21st century? This organization is completely dead. It's just some kind of a media story.
You may remember in one of my debates with the former president, I asked him to condemn the Proud Boys. He wouldn't do it. He said, stand by, stand ready.
I don't know much about Proud Boys, but it's very easy to Google the chairman of this organization. And this guy named Enrique Tarrio, his name is not really Aryan. And if you look at his picture, it's even less Aryan. So maybe this organization is not only about white supremacy. I don't know. Now Biden talks about systemic racism and that you have to pay more for your insurance if you're from the black neighborhood.
But if you go ahead and you want to get insurance and you're in a black neighborhood, you're going to pay more for the same insurance I'm going to pay for the exact same home. Your car, you've never had an accident in your car. You live in a black neighborhood, you're going to pay a higher premium in your car. So there's so many things that are built in institutionally that disadvantage African Americans and Latinos.
Well, if you want to insure your home in Venezuela, you're probably going to pay even more money than in your black neighborhood. The problem here, if you have a higher crime in your neighborhood, the probability of incident is much higher, so someone has to pay more. It's the same for the grocery stores in the black neighborhoods. Prices there are higher because there are more shoplifters, and someone has to pay this price. I don't really understand why the residents of affluent communities should pay for the crimes in the black neighborhoods. Now it's time for George Floyd.
That kid holding that camera for 8 minutes and 46 seconds awakened the whole world. When I met with his little daughter after he was dead, she said, my daddy's changed the world. Guess what? Not only here in the United States, around the world, people said, whoa, I didn't know that happened.
Well, actually, it didn't happen. If you look at the security cameras of all the officers involved into this accident, you can see that George Floyd was deadly high on fentanyl, he was super aggressive, and no one was sitting on his neck. Policemen wanted to restrain him to prevent him from getting self-injured. I know it looks different from this public video, but this is basically an optical illusion. And sorry, the autopsy report found 0 injury in the neck area. And these security videos were released like half a year after the accident. And no one cares now.
Did you ever 5 years ago think every second or third ad out of 5 or 6 you'd turn on would be biracial couples?
This is so crazy. All the companies are afraid of BLM activists and they are preventively creating those advertisements with biracial couples just to say that they are not racist. And I have nothing against those couples, but there is clearly something wrong going on here. Then Biden started to talk about immigration plan and he was so incoherent I couldn't get anything. But then there was something funny.
They're not Hispanics. They're people who came on a visa, was able to buy a ticket to get in a plane and didn't go home. They didn't come across the Rio Grande and swim across, excuse me. And sorry, that's the Irish in me.
Luckily, it wasn't a federal land. Otherwise, Biden would get some huge fine. And finally, it's time for China and human rights abuse.
What about the Uyghurs? What about human rights abuse?
We must speak up for human rights. It's who we are.
He started as he should, but then suddenly he's changed his tone and kind of confirmed that it's okay to prosecute Uyghurs.
The central principle of Xi Jinping is that there must be a united, tightly controlled China. I point out to him, no American president can be sustained as a president if he doesn't reflect the values of the United States. And so the idea, I'm not going to speak out against what he's doing in Hong Kong, what he's doing with the Uyghurs in Western mountains of China and Taiwan, trying to end the one China policy.
Like, really? I think that Uyghur situation is controversial, but you're the most liberal president of the United States. You should condemn all the human rights violation, like full stop, unless you're controlled by China.
We need student loan forgiveness beyond the potential $10,000 your administration has proposed. We need at least a $50,000 minimum. What will you do to make that happen?
I will not make that happen.
This is really nice. The girl probably was studying some stupid bullshit like gender studies, and now she wants 50,000 to be reimbursed by taxpayers. I totally support Biden.
Each of my children graduated from school. I mortgaged the house. I was listed as the poorest man in Congress for, not a joke, for over 30 years.
Well, it's nice that after 30 years you finally managed to find some schemas to enrich your family and yourself on Ukraine and China. And now you're multimillionaire. And the last question was, how does it feel to be a president and live in the White House?
I get up in the morning and look at Jill and say, where the hell are we?
This is really a Trump-style joke about sleepy Joe Biden. Finally, he decided to compare himself with some great presidents.
In the terms of Abraham Lincoln and Franklin Roosevelt and George Washington and how could they're superhuman.
I forgot all the names of the presidents, but I'm very old, so it's okay. This is all, guys. Biden is boring, non-convincing, and has no idea what's going on. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next time. Bye.